Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Tuesday at 5 p.m. and you're in the right place at the right time. We've got another great show lined up for you guys today. My special guest, Mr. Osei, I always call him special guest because he is special. Is in the green room. Actually traveling today, so we're going to be very careful with him that he doesn't run over a whole bunch of folks out there on the highway today. But we're hoping he gets to his destination soon and able to sit still long enough to be able to talk to us for the show. But I'm excited to have him on the show as always. As always, I have to do this before I start every show. You know, I have to give a shout out to my mentor, Dr. Hunt. Dr. Hunt and I have been traveling in life for 30 plus years. And when you have somebody that has been in your life that long, you're supposed to give them a shout out. And I tell you, he has been a blessing to my family, and I've been a blessing to his family. And I just, every chance I get, I'm going to roll his name off my lips so that people know that you need to have a mentor as well. And when you have somebody that's in your life that can be a blessing to you and your family, you need to definitely get a show and give them a shout out. How's that? So that being said, I want to invite you guys over to my website, ask-dr-ron.com. When you get over there, I want you to browse around, take your time, check out some of the things that's going on over there. I have a few of my advertisers on here. With these advertisers, they make it possible for me to do what I do. All right. And I'm going to start out talking about RRJ Web. RRJ Web Solutions. If you have a problem with your website that you need somebody to go in and troubleshoot, fix something that's broken, he can do it. RRJ Web can help you fix your broken website. Well, we have Surf Synergy. We're going to talk about them later on. Port Again Sam. Port Again Sam brings in some of the best wines and spirits from all over the world. And I tell you right now, I was talking with Sam over the weekend, and he's got a 35-year-old cognac. Now, if you like cognac and you want something that's exceptional, you're going to want to give him a call and get an appointment right away so you can get a wine tasting and get what he has in stock right now, because once it's gone, I tell you. So I've scheduled my wine tasting for Saturday. I'll be over there to check out that 35-year-old myself. So I told him I just want to smell it, just to smell what it smells like. 35-year-old cognac. I got to know, just to have the experience. Also, one of my sponsors is Prince Hunter Financial Group. Now, they've got a special promotion going on, only exclusively with the Ask Dr. Ron show. If you're interested in learning how to do stocks, trade stocks, or the Forex market, you're going to definitely want to give him a call and set yourself up for 4 free classes. Now, that's a promotion that he only has right here on the Prince Hunter and the Ask Dr. Ron show exclusively. If you are looking at somebody else's show and say, hey, that's that same guy, I want to get that promotion, ain't going to happen. You're going to have to exclusively tell him you heard about it on the Ask Dr. Ron show. Okay? So do that. Get those 4 free classes, and it will put you on the path for being able to understand how millions are made in the stock market. Okay, so definitely check that out. Well, like I said a little while ago at the opening, we have our special guest who is traveling across the city of Chicago, headed somewhere. I ain't gonna tell y'all where he at. He's in an undisclosed location, headed to a secret meeting with some folks from all over the world. No telling where he's meeting at. But he agreed to, keep the time slot that we had set up because he's been on the show many times before. My friend and my brother, Mr. Osei Andrews-Hutchinson.
Dr. Ron, how you feeling, brother?
Man, I am blessed. I'm still glad to be alive, brother. There's many people that didn't make it to 2023. And I did a whole segment all last week about how grateful we should be to be in 2023. And now that we're here, we need to start looking around, trying to find our blessings that have been placed in time that we couldn't get until we got here.
Right.
So I know that's a whole lot to chew on, but some folks just take being alive for granted.
It's for granted, no doubt. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now I know since we last spoke last year that you have done some more traveling.
Yes, sir.
I know you took your wife on a wonderful vacation, and that's probably so you can still live in the same house with her.
There you go. Hey, it's work, and it's good work. Like you talk about good trouble, this is good work.
Yeah, this is good work. I know that's right. And I know you also have been doing some traveling with your company, Sir Synergy.
Not this time. Yeah, this was Rotary this time.
Rotary this time. Okay, because you have so many different organizations that you are a part of.
Yes, sir.
And and so many things that you do good. So I'm gonna throw it to you and let you start out telling us about an adventure, any one of the adventures that you want to talk about.
Okay, wow. Where do we start? Well, let's go back to the vacation with the wife and the family. So we've talked about this, but I studied abroad, not abroad, but studied in another country. Because you gotta clarify that, right?
Oh, you got jokes.
Studied in another country 30 some years ago when I was doing my engineering.
Okay, now this is something that we didn't count on. By you traveling, your signal's going in and out, so you have to repeat that.
Okay. Yeah, so I was just saying that I studied in another country, studied in France 30 some years ago when I was doing my engineering degree. And so, I was there for a whole year and made some friends. And one of the guys that I connected to, his family is a Champagne family, meaning they live in the Champagne region and they do champagne. And if you know anything about Champagne, there's this place in the world, this it's like a state. This region in France is the only place that can say legally that they make champagne. Now, I think there's a loophole now where California can say we're California champagne, but they have to make that designation. So anyway, so his family is a Champagne family, and I got the chance to go out and meet his family back, when I was studying there, hung out with him. He showed me a little bit around, in this village that his family lives in, and they grow their own grapes. They press the grapes, make it into the juice, and make their own label, in addition to pressing grapes and making juice for other labels as well. So they actually service some of the big labels like Moet, Tatinier, some of these, famous French labels, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I connected to him when my wife was talking about wanting to do something for her 50th birthday. I said, well, what do you want to do? She said, I want to go to France. And I said, okay. And so my guy had just told me that they had kind of retrofitted their family farmhouse where I visited and got it set up to do Airbnb and all this. This is, kind of during the pandemic, he tells me this. And so when she said she wanted to go this year, I said, okay, well, let's call my guy. He said, well, yeah, you can come through, man, for sure. And, even though it's a pandemic and don't worry about it. My daughters are grown. They can be like your concierge. And so it was a fabulous opportunity. We were in Champagne country for about 3-4 days. We got to see some of the big labels, got tours there. I don't drink, but they got to do tastings at these places of all the different types of champagne. We actually got to see the grapes being crushed and everything. And they don't do it in big barrels and boots anymore. They got it all, machinery and everything. And it was just an awesome experience to be in that place in Champagne, where Champagne comes from, where it was born from. Everybody knows about Dom Perignon. Don't know that Dom Perignon was actually a friar. He was, what do you call it? A missionary, guy that lived in one of those, what do you call it?
Priest, yeah.
Yeah, he was a priest, right? And he just happened
Yeah.
and he's not the father of Champagne, but he's the one that's got given a lot of the credit because he kind of perfected the process. So we went and saw Dom Perignon's tomb, right? And so it was just this great experience to be there and to see this country, the country of France, the countryside of France is actually stunning. I mean, it's, and then this is France, talks about how it's a, land of love and, cheese and all that. But when you actually see the countryside and see what they've done in a sense, right? They've created this demand, for champagne. And I just heard a statistic the other day that champagne is like recession proof, is like pandemic proof. The champagne business is doing just fine financially, right? And it all comes from this little itty bitty area out of France. And so that was just, an awesome experience. We also had a couple of days in Paris, because folks, want to go to Paris, so they go to France. So we did that a little bit too. But I think, what I'm working on actually with the family that I'm friends with is to see if I can make this a destination tour, like, do this. So folk want to go and touch the grapes, eat the grapes and see how the grapes are made and all that. That's what I'm working on. In fact, actually, you got me connected to Sam, and we're trying to figure out, kind of how we can make that a big, a thing, to actually go to the Champagne country. So that was that trip. And that was an awesome experience. That was late, because we were there right in time for all the Champagne grapes to be picked. And so we were seeing all these people literally out there. I mean, because they pick them by hand. They don't have like combines or like that. They have to pick them by hand, put them in big bins, and then sort through and figure out which are the bad and good grapes, and then press them and do that. So it's still a very labor intense operation.
Now I got to ask the question.
Yes, sir.
Now, did you observe them? I know I'm gonna probably get in trouble ask this question. So did you observe them using Mexicans to pick the grapes, man? I just want to know, man.
No,
because
it's a valid question, bro. It's a valid question. Now, Mexico's a little ways from France.
I know.
You think, people can't walk to France from Mexico.
Right.
To get here, wherever they come from, like South America, where they come from, Ecuador, El Salvador. People are walking. They're taking. They're getting in trucks. Getting to France is a little bit more complicated. But the reality is, migrant workers are a thing. So I didn't see any Mexicans, but I definitely saw a lot of Africans.
Okay.
I definitely saw a lot of Eastern Europeans. Right.
Okay.
So that's a real thing, because we're literally out here in the middle of Europe. Right. I mean, this is like white people come from. Right. And driving through this little village, and there's some brothers and sisters on the side of the road picking grapes. So it's real. And it's, and we also we were just talking before we got online, we were talking about, the empire, the British Empire, right? Well, France was a little empire too.
Yeah, they were.
France took over about half of Africa, right? If you really look at it, there's a lot of French speaking countries in Africa, and a lot of those people who are residents or citizens of those countries that were former colonies actually come to France. So you got folks from Congo, you got folks from Senegal, you got folks from Mauritania, from Gabon, from Cameroon, who are all hitting France. And that's one of the issues that France is dealing with, is that they have a lot of quote unquote, immigrants, who are coming from these former territories, these former colonies. And they're basically saying, yeah, we want a piece of France too. We want what y'all got, because y'all stole from us for many years. Well, so to that point, when we were in Paris, we ended up walking all around Paris, because one of my wife's friends, she wanted to go to this restaurant that she remembered. She had been there a couple of years back, and so we were walking all over Paris. I got my steps in that day, right? And they went to a restaurant where I couldn't eat the food. It was like only beef and fries. I'm like, okay, so I got to
Oh
find another
wow.
option, right? So I decided to just walk around, and I went found another spot, and then walked around. And I walked down what everybody knows is, they've ever heard of the Champs-Elysees, right, where all the stores are, the Louis Vuitton and Coach and all that. And I'm out there. Must have been a Friday, Saturday night. Man, there were so many brothers and sisters out there. It blew my mind. I did not know we were that deep up in Paris. Did
Wow.
not know. Because 30 years ago, when I was there, I had to find the black community. I had to find the hood. And I found
Right.
it when I came up out the subway in this one spot. And brother asked me, "Do I want to buy some weed?" I said, "Okay, I'm all right. I'm in the hood now. But
Right.
but man, we are rolling deep up in France, at least up in Paris, which
Uh-huh.
blew me away. And that's what it is. You got all these folks from these former colonies of France coming up in the spot and saying, "Hey, yeah, we speak French. Y'all taught us French real well.
Right. Right.
We,
Right.
and they're all up in Paris. And so that blew me away.
So to your knowledge, do they welcome them? Because I
Yes,
know at one point in time, back in history,
right,
Americans and musicians from all around the world used to go to France
right,
because they were welcomed,
right,
and they worked in the clubs there, the jazz communities.
right,
It was some place where they can go and were not mistreated as being black.
right. As
Yeah,
bad. Right.
yeah. So now I know also back in World War II, they had many black soldiers that mated with French women
Right.
and actually left babies over there. So they had a very large black mixed community over there as well.
Oh yeah.
So are they welcome there, or did you see it like still us against them?
So we have to understand the nature of white supremacy, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That anti-blackness, and people don't like to talk about this, but anti-blackness, unfortunately, is universal.
Right.
So wherever you find black folks, unfortunately, in the world, unfortunately, we're the ones that are at the bottom of the barrel, the ones that are getting, treated worse the most, and all these type of things. So yeah, that romanticism, I'll call it, from back in the day, people remember that, but the reality is it's starting to hit home with them. French folks are looking up just like they're looking up here. They're looking up in all these other countries that again either enslave folks or just straight up house their land, and they're looking around and saying, "Wait a minute, what happened?" I mean, I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago when France, I think they won the World Cup or had won some national international soccer tournament, which we call soccer, they call football, and people were like, "Wait a minute, the French team won, but you look at the team, they all African." You know,
Right.
so they're seeing that. So when I was there 30 years ago, there was a lot of tension between the Arab community because we talk about Mexico, right? People coming from Mexico into the United States. You got Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria literally right across the Mediterranean Sea.
Okay.
So their immigration into France, especially into southern France, like along what they call the Riviera, Marseille, Cannes, Nice, Saint-Tropez, all those cities around the southern part of France at the Mediterranean, they were flooding into and so there was a big issues back in that time around that tension between the Arab immigrant population and the French quote unquote European French. But like I said, there's been now this influx more of, I won't call it sub-Saharan African black folk coming into the country. And so now there's a lot more attention going on. I don't know if you remember, about 10 years ago, Paris was on fire. And there was all these riots. You remember this? It was about 10, 15 years ago. There was riots going
Mm-hmm.
on in Paris and everything. And what we saw, if we remember correctly, was that we were seeing the way that Paris was set up was you had the center city of Paris, which was quote unquote, proper Paris. And that's where a lot of the well-to-do French people live. And then most of the folks of color, meaning Arabs and Africans, were on the outskirts, were in the suburbs. And
Okay.
that was kind of the model of what we're starting to see, we started to see in the United States of regentrification, where
Mm-hmm.
you have the communities of color being pushed out of the center city. And then the quote unquote indigenous people, that have taken over the land here, but in there, they're the indigenous French coming into the city and basically setting up shop and all the communities of color on the outskirts, so that when folks started tricking off, what they do, they said, okay, we're gonna shut down the city. Sound familiar? Just a couple of years ago, right? When
Right.
after George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery were assassinated,
Absolutely.
they did
Yeah.
the same thing. We're cutting the city off. We're putting up the bridges. We're not gonna let
Right.
folk into the city and the curfews and all that.
Right. Right.
That
Because that's what they call the gold mile is at, the mile where the near north
Magnificent Mile,
side where all,
Gold Coast, Magnificent Mile, right?
yeah, the area where they have all of the expensive shops,
Exactly.
and so they were protecting them
Right.
because they felt like that was a target for people to attack. Now, don't get me wrong, they attack downtown on a regular.
Right.
These the criminal mind, I tell you, is, I don't care what city you're in, the criminal mind is undeniably criminal.
No doubt.
Okay.
No doubt.
Yeah, because they would take a vehicle and drive it through the front door, and 50 people run in
Oh yeah.
and grab
Yeah.
and leave out of there, and
Congrats.
there don't be an empty hanger in the store.
Madison grad. That's what's up.
Yeah. And it's amazing, it took them a long time to start putting an end to it, but then they just spring back up again.
Yeah.
They started finding warehouses full of, stolen merchandise from all over the place.
Mhm.
And the people that were responsible, the ringleaders anyway,
Right. No doubt.
and
Yeah.
then they, hey, they started right back up again. That's a successful opportunity.
Right. Right.
But like you were saying, they lifted up the bridges, they put police on every street corner.
Right.
Now, we got criminal activity everywhere, but we don't get that kind of police presence.
Right.
Like this past summer in Chicago in 22, a lot of the young people were going down there just spinning cars in the middle of the street, shutting in. There would be so many people
Right.
that tourists couldn't do nothing.
Right. 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 Right.
And that's a problem
Yeah.
because them kids ain't buying nothing.
Right. Right. Hanging out.
Yeah, they just hanging out.
Right.
So they done created whole new laws to lock the kids up.
Right. Yeah. They even cut the curfew by an hour.
Yeah, yeah, told
Daughter, she's
told
like,
them,
I gotta be home. I said, well, the curfew law now is you gotta be home by 10 o'clock.
right,
Yeah.
and told them they couldn't go in Millennium Park.
That's right.
Remember that? Yeah, they
Yeah.
told them, oh no, you ain't going in Millennium Park. Yeah,
They couldn't be downtown after 8 o'clock. Remember
that's
that?
right. Yeah.
So
So
model again was really kind of put to the test, like I said, about 15 years ago when Paris started burning. When I don't remember what the catalyst was, but it was basically folks
yeah.
rising up, and
Hey man, you through driving?
yes, sir.
Turn that light on behind you again. Let's get that back on.
Light, how's that?
Yeah, you go. Now we can see you.
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
because you got dark outside, could barely see you. So for those that are just joining us, Osei is in an undisclosed location, on his way somewhere to a meeting of the minds, and we had him scheduled, and he double booked himself, so he had to get where he was going so we could still do the show while he was traveling. But he's safely where he's at now. I feel a lot better.
Yes, sir.
So now. I know you did the Paris trip, and then you went to Dubai too. Now, what was happening in Dubai?
Okay, well, Dubai, that was, man, you going way back. That actually was back in March.
Okay, well, all right. Well, I think we might have talked about that one already.
Yeah.
We just talking about, and I remember the Champagne, the
Right.
country Champagne.
Right.
And I felt kind of left out because you didn't bring no samples back, and you ain't been able to talk your friend into mailing you none,
Well-
UPS or nothing,
But we'll have to talk offline, bro, because if I mention it here, I'll be getting inundated.
Okay,
We'll talk
there
about
you go. Yeah. Well, we'll do that offline then, because because I'm interested, in his brand, and I'm sure other people are too.
Yes, sir.
And as Sam had mentioned when we started talking to him about it,
Right.
there has to be a distributor in this area that agrees to bring it in.
That's right.
And then that's the only way we can get it in the Chicagoland area and even into this country, because it's so interesting how that enterprise is set up.
Yeah.
But we did take it to the right person, an exclusive.
No doubt. He knows how to.
Pour it again. Sam got the hookup.
Right. For
You know,
sure.
he know how to make everything happen.
There it is.
So now that was interesting. Now I know you had several other trips, you know, during the holiday season.
Well, before the holidays, so my Rotary Club, we have started a relationship and a service work with some folks in Sierra Leone. Um, our past president, one of our past presidents, and our current president, which is her older sister, their family hails from Sierra Leone. Their father and mother met here, got married here, but they were both from Sierra Leone and raised their family here. But they were very clear that they wanted to still stay connected to home, so they sent their daughters back to Sierra Leone so they could learn the language, understand the culture, da da da. Da. Unfortunately, many former colonies that are basically set up to divide people. Sierra Leone had a civil war, and so they actually were there when the Civil War touched off, and basically had to come home early. They didn't get the full experience, but they got some of the experience. So anyway, the point being is that when one of the sisters became our first, when she became president a few years back, we were like, okay, what do you want to do? And she's like, well, I want to do something for folk back home. I want to plug into Sierra Leone. I'm like, hey, let's do it. So, we started doing work around, just doing some service projects like, getting shoes. I mean, like, we don't understand. We have 50 million pairs of shoes, and some of them cost, obscene amounts of money. Some we just get some cheap ones, but shoes, especially for kids out in the bush, having a pair of flip flops is like heaven. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So we went and just rounded up a whole bunch of pair of shoes that we got from, Target, whatever, and she took them over there and handed them out, and they were like, went crazy about them. That was our first foray into it, and then we started building off of that. Bottom line, come to 2022, we built a library out in the village where her father went to high school. And when we talk about the village, we got to understand, we're talking about no resources, talking about,
right.
If you want to see at night, you got to have a kerosene lamp. You got to have some type of oil to burn, right? You want electricity, you definitely got to have a diesel generator, which costs money not only to have, but to maintain and have fuel for it, right? You're not talking about phone lines. Now, fortunately, I'll say this, fortunately, from a technology standpoint, many people throughout the world have access to cell phones, and you can get cell phones relatively cheaply these days, and you can get service relatively cheaply in most parts of the world. So if you're out in the bush, folk got cell phones. The challenge becomes, how do you charge them? So literally, they'll have like charging stations, which are just a little box made out of wood, and they got a car battery sitting in the back. We do charge ups for how many ever, whatever the local currency is. Mm-hmm. So we built this library, and our goal was to go and see the library and do some work in it, kind of do a ribbon cutting. And on our way to Sierra Leone, we were going to pass through Ghana, because that president is from Sierra Leone. She actually lives in Ghana now. And so we were going to pass through Ghana. She was going to kind of show us some stuff in Ghana, fly to Sierra Leone, be there a couple of days, be in Freetown, then go to the village, and then come back to Freetown, and then go back to Ghana. Unfortunately, again, talking about infrastructure on the continent, some of these little villages, some of them only have access roads that have, one way in and one way out, if you're going to go by road. And driving in many of these places is treacherous. We're not talking about paved roads, we're talking about dirt roads that erode, from a good rainstorm, So unfortunately, this one particular town we did this library in, there's a bridge that is the only real safe way to go. Well, guess what? The bridge broke down, and there was no way to get over that bridge. So we had basically, and we were already invested, had bought tickets and everything to go to the village. So we were like, okay, we're still going to go to Sierra Leone. So we went to Ghana for a couple of days, had an awesome time, got a chance to go to the market. Saw, unfortunately, some of the sites that we wanted to see were closed. We did, and this is something I would recommend anybody going back to the continent. If you could find out about anything about the history of our enslavement, or the history of our capture and being made prisoners of war, you try to tap into it on the continental side. So I'm a big person about changing the nomenclature. So people call these places slave castles. In our mind, a castle is something royal. No, these are torture chambers. This is where the terrorism on our people took place. Yep. And so one of the most well-known terrorist chambers, if you will, is called Elmina, which is in Cape Coast.
Yep, Cape Coast, Elmina. Yep.
Yeah, and so
Portuguese slave castle.
The Portuguese set it up, right? But then it changed hands to the Dutch, and then eventually to the British and all that, because they're like, yeah, well, okay, we're done. we got enough. You can have it now. I mean, and thousands, if not millions, of people went through. I mean, there's these slave quote unquote
That's
torture
right.
chambers all up and down the coast. So when you talk
That's
about how
right.
many of our people were captured and put into this situation, the numbers are way off. The numbers are way off. So the brother who's actually at Elmina, he's like, the reality is they talk about a couple. No, it's at least 10 million, if not
Mm-hmm.
30, 40 million.
That's
That
right.
that were captured and either didn't make it all the way because they're like, no, I ain't down for this, and jumped off the ship or whatever, or died in these torture chambers. These torture chambers are soiled. I mean, there's no floors in these things, so the soil is just drenched with our blood and bones,
That's
right?
right.
You can feel it when you walk in. So when you walk into some of these chambers, it hits you, right?
Right.
So
That's
if you
right.
ever go to Ghana, you go to Senegal. Nigeria's torture chambers aren't as well developed for people to visit, but there's different. Like Badagry has a town. It's a town in Nigeria that has some of the history and culture preserved, but you can't go to the actual torture chamber. You can go to like the colonial outpost that was servicing it. But in Ghana, you have Cape Coast. You have which it has at least two of them right there, Elmina, and there's another one. We were supposed to go to that one, we didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
Senegal has Goree Island. So if you go to West Africa, you have to go and you have to experience that, because that energy is still
Absolutely.
there. And
Yeah.
if you go, like for Elmina, they have a room where this is the last room that people were held in, and they're
Before they
crammed
shipped
into
out.
where they died, and you see that door of no return. That
Yep.
once you go through that door, you're like cut off. That's it. And
Yep.
it's deep, man. I mean, you got to
Yep.
experience it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've been there.
Yeah.
And I know
There in Ghana.
and I know the feeling that you're talking about, because the spirit is so heavy
No doubt.
when you walk into that place. The women that were with us instantly started weeping. They just started crying instantly. And even half the guys that were with us, started crying because you can't help it. It's just, and what most people don't realize is that most of the slave trade that took place in the Americas, South America and North America,
No doubt.
came out of West Africa.
That's right.
There were many that, there were twice as many slaves dropped off in the islands, as well as,
Brazil.
right, through South America,
Yep.
and then, of course, our American history, we understood what happened here when we're allowed to speak about it, because people don't want you to talk about atrocities that happened to us. Now, if we were, I'm finna get in trouble again. It's your fault. You on the show.
Hey,
When you start talking about the
complain.
the Jewish Holocaust, they talk about that every year.
Right.
And they won't let people forget about it.
That's right.
But when you're, when you start talking about the millions of Africans
That's
that
right.
were killed, abused, mutilated, in the slave trade, oh, just get over it.
Right. Right.
That's what they tell us to do. Just get over it.
No doubt. And see, I challenge us, because we have to make sure we are clear about what we endure. So first of
Mm-hmm.
all, I don't even use the term slave trade, right? Because trade implies that you get something, I get something, and there's a fair exchange. There was no fair exchange.
Nope.
Even those of
Now,
us.
I'm gonna challenge you on that one, but go ahead, make your point.
I know where you're going. I know you. So even those of us who participated, right?
Yes.
Were the kings that got their prisoners and sent them off on the boat because they got some rum or some sugar.
Captured.
No
They
doubt.
captured.
And
They
that
captured weaker tribes.
Right.
The Ashanti. There are tribes to this day in West Africa that are still prosperous because of what took place during that era. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, and that there has to be a reckoning for that, because we got sold out. Okay, now, but the flip side of that, and this is not to excuse it by any means, but the reality is, and anybody will tell you this, slavery has happened in every society in the world, throughout time. It's one of the oldest industries in the world, and there was slavery on the continent of Africa before Europeans even showed up. The difference, the major difference between what happened to people of African descent in the world versus what happened in slavery systems anywhere else was that in
Mm-hmm.
most cases, you had an opportunity to become a viable citizen in that society. You could work your way out. You could buy your freedom
Yep.
and become a contributing person in that society. If
Right.
anybody's ever read Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, he talks about that and how this one kid was a slave of the main character, Okonkwo, and he was basically going to be able to grow out of that and be able to be a free man. Unfortunately, he got killed in the story. But the point being is that there was that opportunity. He could be seen as an equal.
Mm-hmm.
Chattel slavery removed all that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as we know, we were robbed of our names, robbed of our, as they said at the beginning of
Everything.
Fight for Power, everything, and it was literally beat out of us.
Right.
So
That's
we're
right.
talking about a total dehumanization process, as my elder used to say, the seasoning process. We were seasoned to become the labor force that we were. We didn't come off the boat saying, "Okay, yes, master." No,
Mm-hmm.
first of all,
We
we were
will.
contributing members of our society. We were
Right.
farmers. We were blacksmiths. We were members of secret societies that had understanding of science that Europeans still don't understand today, right? So we were viable people. So we were not traded. We were kidnapped. In some cases, we were sold out, right? And so the reality is, even I'm not trying to give them a pass, but those folks that did that did not really think they didn't understand what they were doing. I'm not giving them a pass. They don't get no excuses, but they did not think that the slavery that they were putting us into was gonna be like it was. They were thinking, "Oh
Right.
yeah, I got slaves. We always had slaves. You want slaves? Oh yeah, no problem." And it was out of greed. It was out of all those things, right?
Yep.
So there's no past there. But the reality is, chattel slavery that was inflicted on the African continent, particularly by the Europeans, but we have to also tell the truth that 1,000 years before the European slave wars, there was the Arab slave wars that started the destabilization of the continent, primarily on the eastern coast, but also into the western coast as well. So, I'm saying that we have to challenge our understanding of how we use even these terms. I don't even use the term slave. I say that our ancestors were prisoners of war. And as a result of being prisoners of war, we are descendants of those prisoners of war. And that this concept of trade was not actually even an accurate nomenclature. It's not an accurate name. And then to the point about what you're making about, the Jewish community, they make it very clear. We went through a Holocaust and it was a terrible thing. And what do they say? Never forget, never forgive. Right.
Right. That's
So
right.
there's actually a term that was developed during the Black Power movement that says we're not going to try to make it a Black Holocaust. That's their word. Let them have that word. We went through a ma'afa. And that ma'afa, that's a word that means a great disaster. It's a Kiswahili term. And it is still
Mm-hmm.
going on today. There's still the residual of that ma'afa where we see some of the things that are happening in our communities are basically, if you've ever seen Black AF, because of slavery. Some of it's still going on because of this legacy that was developed. I was just listening to, I just saw a piece about Descendant. I don't know if you check this out, this documentary on Netflix. And they're talking about this one dude who basically made a bet where he bet he could get a ship in under the government lines that were stopping all importation of Black people from Africa. And he won. He
Mm-hmm.
brought these Black people in like 1860, during the Civil War. He was bringing Black folk in. And that family that he was the progenitor of is still wealthy, still gaining the benefits of that. And that's what we see throughout the United States and throughout really the Western world, is that the way they
Mm-hmm.
got rich was that they stole us, had free labor for hundreds of years, and
Absolutely.
and then went on for a second show and basically moved in to all the territories throughout the continent and just raped it directly. So
Exactly.
the wealth of Europe is all based on us.
Exactly. So look, we get to talking. We ain't got, but another half hour to go.
Right.
So one of the things that I want to talk about, you're an entrepreneur extraordinaire, and a lot of places that you go, and a lot of the things that you do, I gotta show the people. He came back
There it is.
with a special blessing for me and a treat. He went back to Ghana,
Yes,
and he
sir.
got connected with the candy people, the candy ladies.
Chocolate people. Chocolate.
Yeah, that's right. The chocolate. So and all of these are not empty. It was a struggle, but I still got samples, that he dropped off to me, man. So tell us what's happening with that, bro.
Yes, sir. So being in Ghana again has all kind of, special meanings for me. One of them is that I got exposed to. We went the first time I went to Ghana in 2017. I got exposed to this business called 57 Chocolate, which was started by two sisters, the Addison sisters, and they basically got a chance to be outside of Ghana and experience the world a little bit as younger women, and went through Switzerland. And the Swiss people talking about, yeah, we have the best chocolate in the world. They were like, wait a minute, you don't grow one seed of cocoa. How can y'all have the best chocolate in the world? And so they came home with that, that perplexedness and say, no, we got to change this narrative. So they said, we're going to start our own chocolate company. And the reason they called it 57 chocolates because 1957 was the year that Ghana got its independence. And in 1957, the first democratically elected president of Ghana was Sajifo Kwame Nkrumah. And he came with, he's considered to be the father of modern day Pan-Africanism. He's the one that said we need to unite
Pan-Africanism. Yep, that's right.
He's
Unite
the one
Africa. Yep.
A united
Unite Africa. Yep.
Unite Africa, definitely. And so he said, as Ghana, and he and his folks named Ghana, not because the Ghanaian Empire was where they're located, because it wasn't. Actually, the Ghanaian Empire was actually a little further north in Mali. But he said, well, we want to capture that spirit of that empire, of an empire that's self-sufficient, that can do for itself, that can reap the benefits of its own natural resources, and one of those biggest resources being its people, and be able to do for ourselves. And so there was this can-do mentality. So they said in 1957, the sky was the limit. Ghana said, we need electricity. Let's build a dam on the Lake Volta and generate our own electricity. We don't need to be dependent on anybody else. So they came with that spirit. So they said, our company is in that same spirit of can do. We can create our own narrative and create our own businesses to profit it's basically the principles of quantum, So that's where they came from. So they were just really getting started when I met them. And I went up to the sister Kimberly. I said, sister, we need to do something about getting this chocolate in the U.S. People need to be buying your chocolate. I'm a big lover of, confectionaries, but man, if I could get my chocolate fix from y'all, man, I'll be set. Right. So we started having conversations about how we could do it. The biggest challenge, again, the biggest challenge of a lot of the things that we do is we don't control all the aspects. We don't control the supply chain. We don't control shipping. We don't control communications. So we're dependent on others, and they can charge whatever they want because they got a monopoly on this stuff. So that's the biggest challenge, was getting stuff here. So, that first shipment I got, you got some of that as well. And that was kind of to test the market, right? To see if there's a market out here. And we found some folks that, like, okay, yeah, I could do this. And, I had Afriware over there in Maywood. They were carrying the chocolate. Our boy Senna, he started shopping around to a couple other folks. And, I was like, okay, well, what can we do with this? So when I was going back, I said, you know what, let me go get some, let me re-up. And I have to be careful when I talk about it. I only re-up of the product, right? Well, okay, we're talking about chocolate. I'm talking about a kilogram of chocolate, nothing else, no other kind of kilos, right? And when I went over there, I told them I was coming. They said, yeah, no problem. What do you want? Here's my order, And so I brought back some more, and they actually have opened up a U.S. portal to sell it directly, but it's expensive. And so I'm in conversation with them. How do we do a distribution portal or do some type of wholesale piece that can embed the shipping in it, but not jack up the price as much? And so that's what we're working on now. So I'm out. You got a little bit of what I brought back.
Okay.
So I'm like now trying to find folk who are going back to Ghana and say, hey, can you pick up a couple boxes for me? Because that little box that you got,
the small
6 different flavors of chocolate, and they're all cut up to Ndinka symbols, right?
Right.
And so I brought back, bro, more than 50 of those. They're all gone because people were blowing me up trying to get me because it was perfect timing. And I got back and right before Thanksgiving, and people were like, man, I could give this to my staff and my job and da-da-da-da. So people blew me up like, man, can I get, 10, 20, 15 of the boxes? And I'm like, okay, all right. I had to ration it out, man. So now so there's a market, right? There's a need.
There's a market. Yeah.
So I'm trying to see about, someone going. I think I got somebody going actually next week. And I'm like, man, can you bring back a couple boxes? Because, Black History Month is next month.
Right,
and Valentine's Day and all that, So my wife and I are talking about how we can leverage this so that, because For me, and my wife will kill me if I'm saying this right, but I'm gonna say it. For me, it's about getting us to us. That's really my goal. Now, can I make a little money on that too? Yes. Now she's like, you should
and
shoot.
and it's a good product.
Oh, no doubt,
It's not a hard sell.
no doubt, no doubt.
It's not a hard sell. It's, and many people don't realize this, but Chicago is a capital for selling candy and chocolates and
That's
things
right.
like that.
That's right.
Many of the major manufacturers are right here in this town.
Right.
So, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say the challenge. This is the challenge, is that even take the shipping issue out of it, you can go to Walgreens or Jewel or Mariano's or wherever else, and you can pick up a candy bar, even the good stuff, right? The Litz and the Godiva, right? And you're not going to pay more than maybe $2, $3, maybe $4 max, right?
Mm-hmm.
This chocolate, and they make it very plain. We are fine chocolate. Godiva and them, they don't even compete with us. So that's the challenge, is just the cost alone comparative to other brands that are out there. If you take out the shipping aspect altogether, so if we can get the shipping thing figured out, it is still going to be a sell to get people to say, how much will I pay for that? Like you said, that box of chocolate, right, with those 6 squares in it. How much is that going to be worth? Now, the reality is, the sell is, it's a Ghanaian chocolate. It's coming straight from the source. Ain't touched the European American machine at all, right? It's helping us. It's helping this cooperative, these farmers, helping these sisters do their business, all that. So that's really where the sell comes in, because then they say, well, how much does it cost? It's a little more than your Three Musketeers or your Hershey bar, right? Or your Godiva or your Ghirardelli, right? So that's where that. So I'm glad to see that people are like, yeah, I see a value here because this is something nobody else had, right?
Right. That's right. It's exclusive.
No doubt.
Yep. And that's what we're supporting. We're supporting us.
No doubt.
So it's still in the works. That's a good thing.
No doubt, definitely.
Yes, and Sir Synergy is still kicking. It ain't stopped yet. I advertise it every time I go live.
Yes, sir.
So Sir Synergy is still helping people understand how solar energy helps you take control of your energy dollars.
Yes, sir.
So that's another thing. And now they can all get these things through your website that's listed on the screen. You've been on the show before.
Yes, sir.
You ain't hiding from nobody.
That's right.
Now I want to throw this out there because I never know who's going to be listening when you come on the show, because it's always one of those kind of things. You draw. Yes, we're in the process of trying to get water up to Marmalade, Haiti.
Yes, sir.
The mountain. They need water up there to the school.
That's right.
So you need to latch on to this project and be a part of what's going to happen. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
You might as well be a part of it.
That's right.
And Osei is quarterbacking that deal as well. That's through the Rotary and all his other connections around the world. We're going to make this happen.
Yes, sir.
Those children in Haiti are going to have water.
That's right.
Okay? And Apostle Laguerre is coming on the show next week, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So we'll be talking about that in great detail, even the more.
Okay.
So that's something that we're going to be talking about. But I'm rushing through some of these things because I got something extra special I want you to talk about.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Oh, don't say uh-oh. Back in the last quarter, I'll just say the last quarter of the year, they tricked me into going out on tour with 5 ladies.
The Moon Tour.
From Zimbabwe, South Africa.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
A cappella.
Yes, sir.
And my friend and my brother brought his family to the show.
That's right.
Tell us about your experience, please.
Oh, my God. These 4 sisters.
Five.
Right, 5 sisters. Right, my bad.
Yeah.
5 sisters blew it out. They brought the noise. If anybody is somewhat familiar with Sweet Honey in the Rock, Lady Smith, Black Smith, Black Mambazo, they're like those 2 put together, and then add some awesome on the top of it. They came singing traditional songs, 5-part harmony. They had jokes, and they, man, They rocked a version of Lean on Me that shook me to the core. It was
Yes.
just so awesome. And unfortunately, wasn't a lot of folks at the show. It was up at Northeastern Illinois University. But I took my children up there and say, hey, we're going to a concert. They were like, what? I said, yes, we're going to a concert. And they may not appreciate it that night, but they're gonna look back like, man, they were dynamite, you know. So yeah, Nobuntu was off the chain, and they, like I said, they brought themselves, they brought their authentic selves, no apologies, you know. I mean, all five of them were wearing these bad outfits from the continent. So of course, you know, my 6-year-old, she was like, hey, that's the queen from Black Panther. I said, yeah, she's wearing, you know, they had the headdress like Angela, oh my gosh,
Angela
uh,
Bassett. Yeah.
Angela Set had, you know, so it was just awesome. It was an awesome experience. It was, you could feel the music, and it was, like you said, it was a cappella, so it wasn't no instrumentation. It was just their voices, and you could feel it. Awesome show. I know you was on the road with them for a little while, all over the country. And as
Yeah.
much as I wished I could have been rolling with you, I was like, oh, I can't do that with 3 kids. Um, but yeah, it was a definite treat. It's something I will never forget. Never forget.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Like you said, it was poorly attended. It was not advertised well by the university. A nice sized venue.
Right, right,
They did a great job. They hosted us well. They made us feel welcome.
right.
And you're right. I traveled all over the country. Man, I went places with this show that was, man, I will not go back again.
I heard it.
But
I heard it. It's coming out that green book, right?
yeah, man, they got me. They got me. But it was just a cultural uplifting. Every place that we went, there were people from the area, from different parts of Africa that came out.
Yep.
They got a chance to, they were just, and they were very touchable, feelable. They were, right there for people to, experience up front and close and personal. And one of my highlights of the trip was we were in the state of Washington State,
Hmm.
up in the mountains. We were so far up in the mountains, no cell phones, no nothing,
I heard.
and we actually performed for the indigenous people that
Mm,
were on the reservations,
okay, man.
in Washington State,
Oh my God,
and the
man.
kids loved it. The
I can
kids loved it,
imagine.
because I looked at it like indigenous people from West Africa, not West, but I'm sorry, South
South.
Africa,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to the indigenous people of this country and
Right,
this continent. Man, that to me was a meeting of,
right. Of
that
work.
was so powerful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was a
Oh,
cultural uplifting on both sides. So I enjoyed watching that.
no
You
doubt.
know,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm glad you and your family enjoyed it.
Oh yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know. So we got a couple of minutes left. Did we miss something? I know there's always something we miss. Is it something that you wanted to touch on?
Well, you touched on synergy a little bit, and I just wanted to just highlight a couple points there.
Okay.
So the state of Illinois passed a law called the CEJA, which is the Climate and Equity in Jobs Act, and it's basically infusing dollars similar. I don't want to make this comparison because people might get the wrong idea, but similar to how the legalization of marijuana, basically instead of Illinois, was guaranteeing that people who were, previous victims of the system against marijuana, or incarcerated or jailed or fined or whatever, that there's some restitution and lack of a term, reparations around that, and trying to encourage especially Black and brown communities to be able to take advantage of that now that it's legal, right? So similar to that, in the energy field, we are not represented. If you ever go to a solar training somewhere, especially if it's in out in the boonies somewhere, you might be the only one that has of a darker hue. And
Mm-hmm.
we have historically been left out of that conversation, historically been left out of that environment. And so CEJA is a intentional way of the state to say, okay, we need to make sure that there's some equity and inclusion in this area. So CEJA dollars are being made available to ensure that Black contractors, Black implementers, Black designers, whatever, can take advantage of those dollars, because it's coming down, at the federal level as well. So we are in conversations with folks about how do we implement those projects. And that's on the contracting side, but also on the flip side of it, there's also programs where people can take advantage of at the federal and state level, more so at the federal level in Illinois than the state level, to be able to to use and implement clean and renewable energy. Right now, the clean and renewable energy technology most people are aware of is solar, as you mentioned. So solar is the thing right now, where you can get funding to put solar panels on your house or to put solar panels on your business. There are some, as we've talked about, some misunderstandings and misrepresentations out there that, people say, well, if I get solar, panels on my house, and we know somebody in common, right, that has panels on their house, and they're not making any money, even though they kind of were sold on this idea that I could sell power back. Well, you're not going to get the same price that you're paying, number one. Number two, you probably don't have enough space on your roof to generate enough electricity for you to meet your needs and then to be able to sell back. It's an offset. You maybe get, your bill might be cheaper. But the real thing that we need to understand, and you and I have had these conversations about, is how do we leverage this resource and tie that in with some of the, I'll say, historic assets that a lot of our people still have, which is land. I don't know how many of my friends have told me that they still have access, or their family has land in Mississippi or Tennessee or Alabama.
Right. That's right.
Texas, right? And what is that land doing? Well, nothing in many cases. It's gathering up a tax bill. No one's living on it. It's not cleared. There might even be people squatting on it and you don't even know, right?
Right. That's right.
We got a friend here who has some land just out in Linwood. He's not there anymore, and someone's squatting there. Somebody else is living there. He may not even know. So my point is that what we need to be doing is leveraging that asset that our families have and saying, how can we make this do something? Mm-hmm. One of the things that we can look at doing with this land is create what are called microgrids or community solar, right?
That's
where we have to make an investment. I mean, if you're going to make money, you got to spend money to make money, right? You can make an investment to pull in the infrastructure, and Synergy can help you do this, to say, maybe I can produce, maybe there's nothing on that land. So maybe I can create a microgrid on my land and provide energy for the community. Now, there's some infrastructure you have to put in with that, and maybe partnering with the local utility or not, or sell it directly to the utility. Now, there's politics involved in a lot of that as well. But the reality is, when we do this, it's going to be a generation source that they need. Because the reality is, everybody and their mom are going to have an electric car in the next 10 to 15 years. Everybody. Yep. Major car companies are moving away from gas combustion engines, right? Everybody's going to have 5 million devices, right? From your phone to your tablet to your washing machine, your dryer, electric dryers, coming in now, refrigerate, all these things, game consoles. So electricity is the way of how things are going to be done. People are moving away from, not maybe fast enough, but moving away from fossil fuels, right? So why not be that source? That's what we talk about all the time. Why not be the producer instead of just the consumer? And that is a way we can leverage some of the assets that many of our families still have. They have land that's sitting there that's not doing anything. And if we could make that investment, maybe collectively, we create a co-op to create a microgrid. Let me give you just a quick statistic, and I know we're running out of time. We have a partner that's a partner of Synergy that has done that. They took 3 acres, built it out with solar panels. Now, they got some hookups. They got the political, muscle a little bit. But just to put it in the context, they took 3 acres and are providing electricity to the grid through ComEd. They are getting paid on a monthly basis between 30 and 80 grand a month. 30 on maybe winter months, 80 on summer months. So that's the market that's there, right? And these utilities are looking around and they're saying, oh, you built a microgrid and it actually produces 10 megawatts. How much you want for that? Not to provide power. How much can we pay you to buy that from you? Because we need that as part of our generation portfolio, right?
Right. That's right.
Because they get these international carbon credits. It's a win for them.
Big deal. Yeah. Big carbon deal. Credits are huge.
No doubt. So so that's really what we want to push our people to think about, is how do we utilize some of these assets that we've had for generations. Fortunately, they didn't scare us off all the land, right? When we came up here, some folks stayed, and so there's that asset that we could be utilizing to not only do better for the planet, but also to do better for our families and our economy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I know you got a meeting to go to. That was the reason why you're out there in that community
Yes,
where you're at.
yes, sir.
So I got two questions that
Yes,
I
sir.
always got to ask. Will you come back
Yes,
and visit me again?
yes, sir. Will I come back and visit? Is that a real question? Come on, bro. You ask, I'm there. Even when I got something else to do, right?
Well, look, one thing you forgot to mention. You forgot to talk about your broadcast that you do every Sunday.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, real quick, Straight Talk Radio. We're on from 7 to 9 p.m. on WVON AM 1690. I am part of the Africa Diaspora Hour, which is from 8 to 9. It's me, my brother Dr. KK, who's also a Rotarian, and his guy OK. And we just chop it up and we bring guests on. We're actually going to have some folks from around the world with us next weekend, this upcoming Sunday, because there's folks doing a Humphreys Fellowship, and they're coming through Chicago just for the weekend. So we're going to have them on there and talk about their experiences with King Day. And we're actually going to have a sister from Brazil. We really want to talk to her because, your boy's boy lost his mind in Brazil, tried to take things over, right? So we want to hear. So that's Sundays, 7 to 9 p.m., WVON AM 1690, and also on the app, iHeartRadio.
There you go. Now, one last question that I always have to ask.
Yes,
what
sir.
would you like to leave with the people before you leave today?
I think I want to use that bookend of empowering ourselves, right? Let's become more the producers than the consumers, and look at the whole supply chain, right? It's good to have a Black business that sells products that we design, but if we're getting the raw materials from China, from Asia, we've only solved half the equation. That's why 57 Chocolate to me is the perfect situation. You're getting it from literally ground source, right?
To
Growing
table.
to your table, into your stomach, right? That's and if we need to figure out more ways of being that production workforce, if you will, that production entity from that whole piece. Granted, we still got to get the transportation / shipping and communications piece done, but we can say we own that product. That is us doing that product, right? And that's what we need. I think Cam, what's Cam's last name? Running for mayor. You know who I'm talking about. Good brother. He's a state rep now. He's running for mayor. He said this: if it's going to be about, if it can't be about us without us.
There you go. Sounds good. Well,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you once again for coming on the show.
Yes,
You
sir.
know I love you. You and your family, man, have been a blessing to me, and I always appreciate every time you all come out and spend some time with me and talk about what's going on in the world. You stay right there for 1 minute. Let me end the show.
Yes, sir.
All right. I want to invite you guys out to come see me tomorrow, midday, noon. I am doing a noon report on Street News Now each and every Wednesday. Come on out and check me out tomorrow right here on YouTube and on Facebook. Also, check me out on Saturday at noon from the desk of Dr. Ron. Look forward to hearing what I've got to say each and every Saturday from my desk. Something new that's going on this year. I am bringing back Miss Brittany Gissendamer to be a part of me as a co-host, and we're going to be targeting conversation towards young people. She's been on the show, and she wants to come back and be a part of what we got going on. All right, look forward to seeing her next month in February. And I appreciate each and every person that have made contributions to help support what we do. Please spread the information around. Tell somebody about the show. What you see is what we're doing for real. This ain't no joke. This ain't no play. We keep it real. Subscribe, like, and share. Please subscribe, like, and share. And I look forward to seeing you guys on tomorrow. Do not miss the show. See you. Take care.